Meeting of the Littleton City Council, July 2nd. City Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Brinkman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valdez.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Here.
Councilmember Elrod.
Here.
Councilmember Fay.
Here.
And Councilmember Schlachter.
Also here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Council, any changes to the agenda this evening?
No.
Seeing none, the agenda is approved as published. This is the opportunity now for public comment. If you wish to address the City Council, please sign in on the speaker form
Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The City Council is not authorized by the Colorado Open Meetings Law to discuss, comment, or take action at this meeting on any issue raised by public that is not part of tonight's agenda. We may refer the matter to staff to obtain additional information and report back as appropriate. Okay, we have, first speaker is Corey Reitz.
Corey Ritz, Executive Director, South Metro Housing Options. Good evening, Council. I'm here to give you an update on the disposition of our public housing sites, our scattered site, single-family homes and duplexes. We first discussed this at our February breakfast meeting. So I think some of you have heard from some of our residents as well recently in terms of this project. I'd like to thank Councilman Valdez for reaching out to me to ask some questions and get information, and I look forward to talking with you more in more detail. We have 71 scattered site single-family homes and duplexes as part of our public housing program, which is a HUD program, Department of Housing and Urban Development. And typically over the years, the program's been very underfunded, so very challenging to manage in terms of operations and in terms of improving the units. So at the end of this month, we plan on submitting an application where we will be able to hopefully dispose of and or demolish those 71 scattered site units. It is an application process, so nothing is guaranteed, but we think it's going to be a great benefit to the community. We'll be able to use the proceeds from the sale of the units to increase our affordable housing stock. We will be putting the units for sale at below market rate, at least that's the plan as of right now, and hopefully deed restricting them to keep them affordable for years to come. We know this will be a huge impact on the residents, so we're well aware. We've been meeting with them in person. We're very hopeful that they will be able to purchase the home they're living in, and if not, they will be receiving a tenant protection voucher, which we run similar to our Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher program. So despite what you may hear about us evicting everyone, kicking them out, and making them homeless, that won't happen. We will work with them throughout the process to make it as smooth of a transition as possible. We know this is going to be a long process. We're thinking 8 to 12 months at this point, probably longer, I would imagine. So we will certainly want to get get feedback from you all, from city staff. We'll be working with our residents throughout the process and the community at large to make sure this is as successful as we think it can be in terms of an overall project and just an overall success for the community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.
Pam Chadbourne.
Good evening, Council. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. I'm going to take a swing at 4 items, 2 on the consent agenda. I'd like you to approve Littleton's $17,000 contribution to the Tri-City Study of the Homeless. I want to thank Council members Fay and Brinkman for their great comments at the study session. We have had, the city, have had 2 prior study sessions, and I spoke bitterly about them before. An hour and a half spent on myths and beliefs. These comments at this study session brought data, and that is what you said you were going to make decisions on. So thank you for those comments, and I'm so happy that there's been a change in this tenor from the past couple of years to that meeting. I'm going to make a little quibble. It's not just to save money. These people are suffering, and community members complain about them, so the council should invest in solving the suffering. And I'll just make a note, the public hearing has a reference to the Metro Mortgage Assistance Program. There's a link. Actions the council could take, write to the Colorado legislature to change our eviction laws. And let me mention, this is a Tri-City problem. It should be addressed Tri-City. To not fund this would be to deny our benefit from being part of the larger solution. You got to solve this as a group. This does that. And it's a small amount of money for the benefit. And some folks have questioned the grants to community organizations that provide services. I support these grants. They are a tiny amount of money. They provide services that reduce problems for the city at a much lower cost than the city could ever spend. So please support them. Second of all, I've got a comment about the minutes from June 4th. The citizen comments are summarized as opposed or for. I would like you to have the clerks summarize our comments as the same actions that council has. So if council can continue to a later date, let us be recorded as choosing that option, the same as you. And I've got a long email about that, which I'll send. General business, Columbine Valley Wild Plum Farm drainage. I spoke at the Columbine Valley hearing about this. Their city planner was kind enough to compliment my comments. I do believe that some modifications have been made, but I'm still concerned. There are over 100 estates here, with landscapers probably putting nitrogen fertilizers on lawns, herbicides, and pesticides, and they're persistent, and that's scary. And I want to say something about city manager increase. We had a reduction of 100 employees, fire station properties, and equipment this year. And I'm not sure why you give an increase to an employee who has fewer responsibilities. Thanks very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Pam. That's all who's signed up. Does anybody else care to come down and speak in public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close the public comment, and we'll move to consent agenda. Consent agenda items can be adopted by a simple motion. All ordinances must be read by title prior to the vote on the motion, and any consent agenda item may be removed by the request of a council member. Item 19-185 is a motion to designate funding for an assessment on homelessness as recommended by the Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Group, and I'm going to pull that. Resolution 32, 2019 is a resolution authorizing approval of the 2018 Arapahoe County Community Development Block Grant Program sub-grantee agreement for the Littleton Sidewalk Improvements Program. Ordinance 2019 is the first introduction of an ordinance on first reading approving an equipment lease agreement with Wells Fargo through Luan Technology for print technology, software, and services. Resolution 33 is an approving of a memorandum of understanding between the Littleton Police Department, the Denver Police Department, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for the evaluation and entry of firearm evidence into the Brass Track system for correlation on the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. ID 19-175 is a motion to authorize the city manager to execute an amendment to a lease with South Metro Fire Rescue Protection District for Station 11. And item ID 19-161 is approval of the June 4th, 2019 regular meeting and the June 15th, 2019 special meeting minutes. So I need a motion.
Yes, Mayor, I make a motion to approve consent agenda items B, C, D, E, and F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Cole. Ready to vote?
Yep.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Oops. Oh, is it on?
Okay, so I pulled item 19-185. This is the motion to designate funding for an assessment on the homelessness as recommended by the Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Group. What I wanted to add to this, I am not pulling it out of lack of support. I do support it. I wanted to share with council and with the public that we have been reaching out to partners, which was the agreement that we made in the study session where we talked about the funding on this. It is a total of about $107,000. We are splitting it between the 3 cities, but we've also reached out to some people who want to partner with us on this and are agreeing to contribute. Arapahoe County Commissioners, Nancy Sharp, I reached out to her, and she is the commissioners will be paying for the family homelessness study, which is a little more than half of the total cost. Reached out to Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, and they are going to contribute $10,000 to the study. And we've reached out to South Suburban Parks and Rec, and they will contribute $5,000 to the study. We've also reached out to some additional partners, and we haven't heard back from them yet. They are interested, they are eager. I think they've got a little bit more of a process to go through. I know Inglewood has also reached out to a couple of partner opportunities. So we will see, hopefully we'll have more funding come in, but I think that's pretty substantial, and it's good partnerships with these folks. There's stakeholders in it. So that's all I have. I'll make a motion to designate funding for an assessment on homelessness as recommended by the Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Group.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We are on to general business. Our first item, ID 19181, 2018, audit report and comprehensive annual financial report presentation. So we have our finance director, Tiffany Hooten, here. Tiffany, do you want to start off?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tiffany Hooten, Finance Director. This evening, we have Paul Niedermuller, who is joining us from Clifton Larson Allen, and I'm going to turn the presentation over to him in a moment, but I'd just like to say thank you, Council, for your support over the past year in working through the CAFR, working through the budget, getting the information. I'd like to give some kudos to my staff, because without their help and the staff of the department or the city as a whole, we wouldn't be able to complete the audit in the time that we do complete it, and with the results that we accomplish every year. So I just wanted to say thanks to them for that. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Paul with Clifton Larson Allen, and he's going to go over some information related to the audit and the CAFR itself. So.
Thank you. Everybody hear me okay? Got to get the button right. I apologize. Paul Niedermuller representing Clifton Larson Allen, and I'm going to briefly highlight a few items of note to the council for your stewardship through the financial audit process. Again, we work for council as noted in each of our letters that are addressed to the honorable mayors and members of the city council. And so on page 10, we only get 3 pages in your comprehensive annual financial report. We're going to address the first one is on page 10. And again, this is very good news for your stewardship as over the comprehensive annual financial report. You got an unmodified opinion, which means in all material respects, we stand behind the numbers as presented within your 135-page document. We talk a little bit about what that all means within the financial opinion. We're not going to go into a lot of details, but again, we'd be happy to address any specific questions that you had at the conclusion or any time during the audit process. We started this engagement back in August 14th, 2018. So you can imagine the taxing that we have with the finance group and working with exchanging information, understanding your business processes, getting information and gathering. It was finally culminated on June 10th, 2019 for the year ended December 31, 2018. We also had in your packet another letter which kind of talks about that process from August to June and basically brings any highlights that we think are warranted as your stewardship over the process. Again, one change in accounting policies that you adopted a new accounting standard. We note, we note that it did not have a material impact, but you did adopt that as required by the Government Accounting Standards Board. Finally, there's a variety of different estimates within your financial statements, and we evaluated those key factors and assumptions that were used to determine those estimates by city staff, and we did not have any comments surrounding those. I think that the next 2 bullet points that we would like to address is difficulties. So again, if we were asking for information, we didn't get that information, or not getting timely receipt of that information, we would be required to note that to council. In fact, the opposite was true. Management was extremely timely in requests for information, and we were able to perform our job in a timely manner as we moved along. Disagreements. Accounting is not an exact science, as we talked about from an estimate, but we did not have any disagreements in performing our audit or conclusions that were reached by management that we opined on as we talked about in our report. So those are the items that we wanted to bring to your attention, that is your external auditing firm. And at this point, we would be happy to address any specific questions as your role as an external audit firm.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councilman Valdez.
Just one question. This is, just to remind me, this is your first year that your firm has done the audit, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I just want to remind some other folks too that 15 years ago, for those of us that were paying attention way back then, the report that he's given us tonight is not the kind of reports that we had back then. So Tiffany, kudos to you and to your predecessor, Doug, for getting things in line. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Council, I need a motion, please. No, I know. We don't need a motion. No motion.
Just
It is what it is.
Just see you later.
Move
Yeah,
on.
see you later, Paul.
I do also want to, though, echo Jerry and the congratulations to Tiffany and her team, the finance department. I think that this is truly the most important work, is the budget, is the money, is the handling of it. And to have, the stellar report that comes through obviously means that the citizens' money is being treated with the highest level of respect, and you're honoring the service to which, we are obligated to provide. And so it is wonderful to not have a problem in that area, to not have to worry about it. I've sat in, watched other councils where they have not had those reports come back in, and not in Littleton, but in other cities. And it really is a top priority, and it's our job. So, and I appreciate what your team does and the extra hours you put, and thank you so much for working with her and the team and your words. We appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, moving on. This is item number B under general business, is a resolution. Is Resolution 29, 2019, which is granting drainage easements on the Coulee Lake property for the Wild Plum subdivision.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Anastasia Urban, Development Services Manager with the Department of Public Works. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation just to provide an overview and a refresher from the last time this was before City Council, which was presented at a study session in June of last year. Bear with me one moment while I get this kicked off. Okay, this agenda item deals with drainage easements on Coulee Lake property. The subdivision, Wild Plum, is in the town of Columbine Valley. It is directly west of Coulee Lake, which is owned by the city of Littleton. And prior to development, the Wild Plum subdivision drained to Coulee Lake. With the development of the project, that subdivision was reviewed by the town of Columbine and approved by the town of Columbine through their review process and best management practices. Stormwater management through detention and water quality has been designed in accordance with urban drainage flood control design standards, and in specific cases well exceeds the required amount for water quality design. As I mentioned, Coulee Lake itself is owned by the city and managed by South Suburban Park and Rec. As such, any easements need to be granted by the City Council. Prior to the development, there were 8 outfalls from the property into Coulee Lake. Post-development with their subdivision design, there will be 2 surface outfalls and 4 subsurface outfalls, meaning below the normal water level, and that is typically during a normal event where that drainage will occur. This is just a summary of what the review process was for the subdivision and the specific details of the stormwater management. Basically, no changes to public or general access would be granted through granting of this easement. It's mainly to allow the construction and maintenance of outfalls of their stormwater pond. At the study session in June of last year, council raised concerns about water quality impacts to Cooley Lake being a very high quality natural area and water source, and also what would happen in the event of default if the subdivision, specifically the Metro District, who's responsible to maintain it, were to fail to maintain it. And that is essentially the difference in time between council seeing this as a study session of last year and 1 year has passed. So through feedback from City Council, the town of Columbine renegotiated their intergovernmental agreement with the Metro District, specifically stating that the town of Columbine will and can enter the property in the events that their ponds are not performing per design. Again, the design aspects of the pond greatly exceed what the required amount was, and staff has reviewed this, and we believe it meets the best management practices for best stormwater management. And specifically, we do have additional information regarding the permanent operation and maintenance of the pond that restricts the use of fertilizer and pesticides, specifically around the area of the pond. And then there's also dog leash requirements and pet waste pickup requirements. As I mentioned before, the town of Columbine did amend their IGA with the Metro District. And through our review and coordination with the town of Columbine, we do recommend that council approve these easements. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Elrod?
On the operations and maintenance plan, the restricting the use of fertilizer and also the dog leash requirements, what is the oversight of that?
So specifically, it is limited to the area of the pond itself, directly in relation to the pond. So the Metro District is the responsible entity to maintain that pond. And so they are the ones who have oversight of the application of pesticides. It is not specific to individual lot owners because that on a single family basis is difficult to maintain and provide oversight of. However, through their design, one of the design features is disconnected impervious area, which means that basically their lot grading allows for roof runoff and driveway runoff to get filtered through vegetated areas to further filter that stormwater before it enters the pond. And then the pond provides that additional layer of stormwater management filtration before it enters Cooley Lake.
And enforcement, so if there's a violation, or how do we determine whether this is actually happening as agreed?
Currently, the intergovernmental agreement is between the town of Columbine and the Metro District. Through our easement agreement, the easement agreement does have provisions that discusses their ability to access and maintain the outfalls as needed. And then through both the city, having access to Cooley Lake and South Suburban as a great maintenance partner. We currently visit the site with South Suburban, and specifically Scott Latona is out there a lot. We've been out there a lot, both for this project and other projects in the area. So I believe South Suburban has a very good understanding of activities in the area and would be able to report any concerns specifically to us and then work with the town of Columbine to seek remedy.
Other questions? I do have a couple questions. Is this the entire design, is this designed entirely for all the storm water runoff for the entire development, or is it a portion of it?
I may call in another staff member, Carolyn Roan, our Water Resources Manager. I'll start my understanding of the stormwater design, but she assisted in the technical review as well, so she can jump in and correct me if I am incorrect. But generally, Pond 1, which is the subject of the easement agreement, captures a portion of the stormwater, and then a portion of the development does drain further north where it doesn't discharge directly to Cooley Lake or city property, so that stormwater is filtered through the north pond, which is discharged to a different drainage way. So yes, I mean, just per state regulations, all stormwater has to go to some sort of water quality treatment device unless it meets certain exemptions. And so this design is subject to those same requirements.
So in the event that we have a rain as we had last night and is excessive, and that is not unusual in Colorado, when those ponds fill up and they flood out all over, because they can't handle that type, what are some of the mitigating things there? Because what I see and what concerns me a great deal is that property for years was just a pasture. There was a home on it, but there was not any kind of impact to the Cooley Lake. Now you're going to have something like 900 homes. You've got everybody out there using their Roundup, and they've, the dogs and all that stuff. I don't know how they think they're going to manage that or control that. The fact that there isn't restrictions about using that stuff in that type of environment, I think is troubling to me, although I understand that may be difficult to do. But the delicate balance of Cooley Lake being the pristine that it is and having 900 homes drain in, pardon me?
I think it's 90.
90.
Yeah.
90, okay, so that's better. But 90 homes drain in, but they're large lots. So they're very large lots. They have a lot of permeable on, the grasses and all that. So I wonder do you feel comfortable? I mean, are we doing the minimum or are we doing beyond? Are we doing more? I mean, I see some of the numbers that they look extreme, but I mean, even in some of the finer details.
Well, they have exceeded the standard design criteria that's established for water quality treatment facilities, which is criteria that's been developed through Urban Drainage and Flood Control District. And they have exceeded that for the water quality capture volume and the design of this particular pond and the way that it's designed to infiltrate. There's a minimum bottom surface area that's required, and they've greatly exceeded that. So, my interpretation and my evaluation of it is that they've more than provided for the treatment for any additional fertilizers and nutrients that might be getting into the stormwater, and it filters down through an under drain system before it discharges into Cooley Lake. I want to add a little bit too that control of fertilizers and dog waste and all those kinds of things are best management practices that are enforced through a town's MS4 permit, and the town of Columbine Valley does have their own MS4 permit. So Ms. Elrod, when you were asking a little bit about the enforcement, there is additional enforcement through that. I mean, if we were to observe something wrong with the pond or its function or water quality getting into, poor water quality, which I don't think will ever happen coming into Cooley Lake, we could approach the Metro District directly, but we could also go through Columbine Valley and have it enforced through their MS4.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Council, would like a motion, please?
I move to approve the resolution granting drainage easements on the Cooley Lake property for the Wild Plum subdivision.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item is item 19-188. This is a motion to approve city attorney contract. And the council has worked with the HR department, and we contracted with Jobber Group to do an extensive search for a city attorney. And we concluded that search on Saturday with interviews of our 3 final candidates. And council had at that point then asked to move forward a contract to Reed Betzing, who is our selection for city attorney. The contract was negotiated through our HR department. Everything is finalized at this point except for a vote blessing this from the council. So I'm going to break a little from protocol after council votes. Reed is here, and I'd like him to come down and say a few words. That is, as long as the vote goes as you expect it to go tonight. Reed. Okay. So council.
Speak to if it doesn't.
Yeah, then you might really want to talk to us. All right, I need a motion, please.
Mayor, I move to approve the contract between the City of Littleton and Reed Betzing for the position of city attorney.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
I would like to say one thing here.
Sure.
I would just like to first congratulate Reed on his interview, going through that process. His experience definitely came through, and I mean, it wasn't an easy process for him to go through, and I think he kind of shone like a bright star there. I'd like to congratulate the other applicants too. It was not an easy decision. I think we had lots of good applicants, and I think the fact that he came through is a testament to his ability and experience and the faith that we're putting into him. And I'd also finally like to congratulate staff, HR, and the job group. I think they did a fantastic job facilitating this process for all of us, and so I think that was excellent. So thank you for all.
Thank you. Ready to vote?
Can we vote now?
Yep.
You're done. No. The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Reed?
Probably one of the few votes that council will make that I'm actually really curious about how that one's going to turn out. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity. It is truly an honor to represent the city of Littleton. I've been an attorney for about 18 years. I've spent going on 14 years involved in municipal law. I've had the opportunity to represent just about every department within a city. So I feel that I'm well equipped to deal with some of the issues that Littleton is facing right now and will be facing in the future. So once again, thank you so much. And I look forward to working with council, to be working with staff and engaging with citizens.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reed.
And I do want to just add that the process that we went through with the HR department, we got a report back today that it actually came in $7,300 under budget. So congratulations. Thank you for saving some money. All right. So our next item on the agenda is a motion.
Don't we have to vote?
We did?
We did.
That's okay.
We can vote again if you'd like.
We might change our mind. ID 19-179 is a motion to approve an amendment to the city manager's contract approving a salary adjustment. City council did their annual review of the city manager, and we met with him in June, I think it was. Well, it had to have been because it wasn't July. And overall, we feel like the city manager is doing a very good job. We have obviously had a lot of work on our plate, which then went to the city manager's plate, and navigating the work that's being done on the comp plan and all of the pieces and parts that are involved with that. I think also the fact that the city manager has made some substantial improvements in terms of some hires in some of our key departments with our key directors, and we're seeing the positive effect of that. Also, the council believes that the city manager has been able to keep all systems on track. Things are continuing to run smoothly. Problems are being solved quickly. We are fortunate to be able to have a city that at this point that's kind of everybody's running in the same direction. So, and that's towards success. So I think that is an indication of our indication through the review was our appreciation for that. It was certainly don't stop. It was certainly keep up the good work. There were obviously a couple of points where the council wanted Mark to spend a little bit more time on, and he has agreed to that. And I don't think we had any disparity in any of those things. So we're all on the same page. We're all very pleased to have you here for another year. Mm-hmm. And so we are increasing Mark's salary by 5.4%, which takes his salary to $190,132.80. So council, I need a motion, please.
I'm
Pregnant?
I move to approve approve the motion approving a salary adjustment based on the city manager's 2019 performance evaluation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
Scared you there for a second, didn't we?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Motion dies for lack of a second. That would have been good, Mom. Okay, we are on to ordinances on second reading and public hearing. Ordinance 18, 2019 is a second introduction of an ordinance amending ordinance number 39, series of 2018, known as the Annual Appropriations Bill, also the city budget, for all municipal purposes of the city of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, Jefferson, state of Colorado, for the fiscal year beginning January 2019, ending December 31, 2019. And Finance Director Tiffany Hooton will present.
Good evening, Council. Tiffany Hooton, Finance Director. I already saw you once this evening, and you'll get to see me one more time. So the policy question you have before you is, does City Council support an amendment to the 2019 annual appropriation? A little bit of background, the budget is definitely a planning document. Changes happen during the year, new things come up, we need to address some issues. Amending budgets is a common practice throughout state of Colorado and the United States in general. We have typically come to council quarterly and then one time at the end of the year to do what we call a cleanup appropriation. Just for you, there have been 2 previous amendments to the 2019 budget. One of them was Ordinance 2, which was related to the comp plan and the transportation master plan. And then Ordinance 6 as well, which was carryover encumbrances from 2018. The current amendment you have before you has several items. There's a number of resources that are directly related to the 2019 goals and objectives that were set by council previously in the year. There are some personnel-related costs. The city receives some grants that we do have to appropriate an expenditure and a revenue related to those grants. We do have one Tabor funds carryover issue. It's related to the intersection, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit. And then we actually have some additional state funding that's coming to the city this year, and so we want to go ahead and appropriate for that. More specifically on the items that are related to the 2019 goals and objectives is we did have a discussion with council earlier in the year where the goals and objectives were set. At that time, we did discuss some items that we would be bringing forward that are related to accomplishing those goals and objectives, and those are the ones listed before you. We have a transportation and infrastructure project manager. This is a 2-year term position. It's not a position that's going to continue. We did limit it to 2 years. A portion of that is going to be paid from the sewer fund. So that's why you see $50,000 related to the general fund. We have a grounds and landscaping assessment that we like to do citywide. That's $35,000. We have a grant specialist. This is a new FTE that we are requesting of council. $45,000 is the amount that we anticipate to be spent in 2019. So it is a partial amount for 2019. This is a position that we do intend to maintain on staff. The goal for that position is that we will be getting enough grants and we will be able to recoup our costs related to this position. This person will be managing the grants across the organization as a whole. And with that, we have an opportunity to recoup some costs, especially related to federal grants that we're hoping will be able to fully fund this after the first couple years. And then we also did include $40,000 related to polling for capital funding. We did add a note that this could also be a communications consultant. That's kind of how we anticipate that to go forward. This is particularly related to the lodging tax discussion that we had on Tuesday. A few more is a fleet assessment. Fleet fund assessment. Years in past, we've had a separate fund that we use to accumulate funds and replace our vehicles throughout the city. That was depleted and eliminated back in about 2014, I believe. We'd like to revive that, but in order to do that, we need to have someone come in and assess how we would go about that. And there's some initial funding that we would need for that, and so we would like someone to come in and help us assess that. The other is a transition to Office 365. This is an internal software change. We're currently with Google, and we'd like to transition to Office 365. Again, a portion is going to be paid from the sewer fund for that. And then the Track It 9 conversion, this is the system we use for building permitting throughout the city, and a portion of that we can fund out of the sewer fund as well. A couple of staffing changes. We have the city attorney recruitment. Kind of saw that, the result of that tonight. Congratulations. And then we have some court staffing changes that we would like to propose for the courts. So the total impact to the general fund is $415,700. And if you recall, when we discussed this back with council when we were setting the 2019 goals and objectives, we did provide some information to you as far as the fund balance is concerned. This is going to be a direct impact to fund balance. We're anticipating using some of our reserves that we have in the fund balance. And the implications of these amendments would bring the 5-year financial plan estimated ending fund balance to about 14%, which is within our 8 to 18% policy. I mentioned a few grants. We did get a $1.75 million grant from CDOT, and this is a 100% reimbursed grant. There is no matching required from the city. We do have to appropriate the expenditures related to that, so there is no impact to the fund balance for that grant appropriation. And again, the $5,000 for Domino's, we want to formally adopt an appropriation for that wonderful benefit we had to the city. Again, neither of these have an impact to the grant fund or the city. A couple of things for open space. Back in March 5th, council approved an application for Option Secondary Whitman School. It's a grant through Arapahoe County Open Space. There was a $50,000 match for that. $298,034 is the pass-through amount, so that's the grant amount. Again, we have to appropriate the expenditure and the revenue related to that grant. So the impact to the open space fund is $50,000 for this amendment. A few things in capital projects. I mentioned the Tabor funds carryover. That's for the Bowles and Federal intersection. I apologize. This should have been included in the original carryover appropriation that we did in February and March. And so this is to kind of finish that piece of that. We did not spend those funds in 2018 related to that intersection, so we need to formally adopt that and approve that for 2019 carryover. The other one we mentioned is State Bill 19262. They granted some additional state funding to local municipalities throughout the state. The estimate that we're going to be getting is $186,400. Again, this is a 100% offsetting revenue, but we do have to appropriate the expenditure and the revenue related to that funding as well. And then one that we have amended from the first reading that I would like to point out is the relocation of the Dispatch Communications Center. It's $260,000, but again, this is going to be 100% reimbursed by E911 funds through the Arapahoe County E911 service. Again, we have to appropriate the expenditure and the revenue, but there's no impact to the fund balance related to that one. So the total impact to the capital projects fund is the carryover Tabor funds for Bowles and Federal, but I will remind you that I had already incorporated that into our 5-year plan, so I was anticipating that. Just a little summary of the total supplemental appropriation. Again, the number's pretty large. It's $3.4 million across the 4 funds that I mentioned, but the actual true impact to fund balance is $942,270, and again, that's because of the grant pass-through or the funding pass-through from the state. The options are approval of the amending 2019 annual appropriation bill to align the expenditures with the budget, or if you choose not to approve the amendment, it could limit project completion and operational needs throughout the city. Staff does recommend approval of this amendment. And if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer.
Council questions for Tiffany?
No. Tiffany, we got $9 million for the mineral Santa Fe intersection. Where does that money go, or where does that show up?
So you're probably going to see that in the 2020 budget when we start those discussions. There's a match requirement that we're going to be talking about on how we're going to fund that. So 2020 and beyond that is when you'll start seeing that.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilmember Elrod.
So this is all for 2019, correct?
It is, yes.
And we're halfway through the year. Do you have because now this brings our reserve balance down to 14%.
Yes.
Do you have an indication of any future, so we have 6 months left in the year, any future projects that are coming forward that we maybe don't have finalized numbers yet, but we know there will be still be more implications to 2019 that we need to plan for?
For the remainder of 2019, currently, the only one that I can think of that would impact the general fund is related to the city attorney's office. Just having a contract attorney for a few months is going to impact the general fund, so we'll have an assessment of that. We do have a vacancy in that department currently that we can help offset. That's the one in particular that I can think of off the top of my head.
And we potentially have some open space negotiations, so that may be another one that's not.
That potentially could, I'm sorry, I'm thinking general fund, but yes, potentially that parcel could impact the open space fund or something else.
It would also impact general fund, because, no? Okay. Nothing else.
That it? And this may not be a question for Tiffany, but I continue to be concerned about what's going on at Bowles and Federal, or maybe the lack of what's going on at Bowles and Federal, and maybe we need to get an update on that. But I'm not a big fan of asking the citizens for the Tabor refund and then moving that through the years. We did that with the fire one, and then we moved that, and then it kind of goes off everybody's radar. And this intersection is a problem, and it always has been, and we continue to get complaints from the community about it, and the accident reports there that it's aside from Santa Fe, it's our biggest problem. So moving the money into I'd rather get the work done. So Mark is just chomping at the bit.
Just a quick update. I think I commented on this via Keith Reister here maybe a month or two ago, but we went through an extensive public process well over a year ago, and we met with citizens in the surrounding area and other agencies. And so we got a lot of input about kind of the problems that we see. We've always known that the original scope for this was probably something smaller than what we wanted to do ultimately for a fix. After that public comment period, and no surprise, the public too wanted the ultimate fix. We actually approached the state and applied for a grant to do the whole thing at a larger scale. We were not successful. And so now we're back to kind of the original scope. So that's kind of the intent. I'd be happy to have Public Works provide a more detailed explanation. The intent is to actually go to bid here late this summer. And so the construction would actually begin here yet this year. So I'm sure they can give you kind of a better idea of kind of the scale of the improvement and what to expect.
What's the difference between what we have with the Tabor money and what the project needs?
That would be something Public Works would have to respond to, but it's pretty substantial.
Okay.
It's magnitude of over $1 million, I'm confident.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I need a motion, please.
To open the public
This is a
hearing.
public hearing. So I will open the public hearing at 7:19. No one has signed up to speak. Would anybody like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 7:19. Need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance amending number 39 series of 2018, known as the annual appropriations bill for all municipal purposes of the city of Littleton, counties of Arapahoe, Douglas, and Jefferson, state of Colorado, for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2019, and ending December 31, 2019.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Councilmember Cole. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, on to ordinance 17, 2019. This is a second introduction of an ordinance approving the city's participation in the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program and authorizing the execution of the delegation and participation agreement. And Finance Director Tiffany Hooton will present this also.
Okay, before you have ordinance 17, 2019. It's related to the Metro Mortgage Plus program. The policy question before you is, does council support the city's participation in the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program? Some background on this program: it was created in 2013. They evaluated the program over the years, and in response to the decrease of the program, they decided that they needed to kind of reformat the mortgage program, the city and county of Denver, to kind of address some of the housing challenges that are in the Denver area and to better serve those borrowers that are buying throughout the metro area. What this is it allows for a down payment assistance to home buyers. They don't necessarily have to be a first-time home buyer. I do need to note that there is one correction on the staff presentation. These are second mortgages. They're no interest notes, and they actually are forgivable after 36 months, not 6 months. I apologize for that typo. I'm sure they would love for them to be forgivable after 6 months, but unfortunately it's 36 months. So I do need to note that. What they did with this when they were looking at reformatting the program, they wanted to increase the lender pool to applicants. There is no financial obligation to the city. This is created by the city and county of Denver. The city would have the option, if they wanted to, provide additional funding above the 3%, 4%, and 5% down payment assistance, but at this time we're not promoting that. What we will do is we will provide information on our website. We'll have links to all of the lender information in the city and county of Denver. And what it'll do is it'll allow someone who is looking to buy a home in Littleton some other options for down payments. Down payments are hard to come across. Typical 20% down is still tough for people to do. And so this gives them an option to have some assistance on that. It'll promote residents across the program, or your options, sorry. We'd like the city to support this. It allows residents, like I mentioned, the ability to buy homes in Littleton proper. You can forego this agreement and limit access for future residents. You could also monitor the program. It began officially in February, I believe. And if you want to monitor it to maybe see the interest of Littleton residents, you could certainly do that. Staff does recommend approval of this program. It's been very successful in other municipalities. And if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Councilmember Elrod?
Have we used this before, or is this our first year?
This is the first year for this program. It's kind of like a
of this particular version of the program?
This particular version,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But we have participated for a number of years. We provided some information on the number of loans. I believe it was 71 loans that have been offered through to Littleton residents at a dollar amount. So it's been very successful in the past. I think with the changing housing market, the needs kind of changed for the program, and that's why they wanted to reevaluate and see what would help home buyers more.
And would this be something that could help support and service some of the outcomes from the South Metro housing options that were shared with us earlier today? So for some of those types of residents, that potentially this is another tool and resource that we can provide to those residents?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great.
Other questions?
Where's this money coming from? How does it get funded?
So the city and county of Denver actually seeded the funds for this program. I believe the lenders have a portion or some kind of support for this program as well through their ability to lend to more home buyers.
And is it the entire Front Range, or is it just the Denver metro area?
It's just the Denver metro area from what I understand, but I can certainly check on that.
Okay.
Jerry?
I do have one concern. Kind of like government getting involved with student loans for college, tuition just keeps going up. I'm a little concerned here that this will be just the way that our are helping out getting a down payment down, it'll be a way for sellers to just say, hey, well, we can increase our price by a bit. Do you see anything like that possibly?
I don't think it would increase the price of the home. That's kind of dictated by the market. Potentially what it does is there are different interest rates that would apply if they use this program. So I think in that respect, that's where you might see that difference.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I highly support this program. It has transitioned over the years. It actually at one point I think was came out of Metro Mayors, and it kind of transitioned into a Denver program. Part of what's happened is that while we recognize that it's a really good program, there's been challenges in keeping it afloat. And so I think they've got a good plan here. I actually, one of its first iterations, 25 years ago, I bought my first home with it. And what it does is it's an opportunity for people who are, as Tiffany said, struggling with a 20% down. First-time home buying in the Denver metropolitan area is just an impossibility with the price of homes right now. 20% often would be enough to buy a home 10 years ago. So I think it's going to definitely be of a great assistance, particularly to people who are just on the brink of being able to get something and just can't get right over that last little hump. So, and having Littleton participate, in a number of years we did not participate, and so the loans and the money were going to other communities in the metropolitan area. The lenders are the ones who really manage this, and so when a lender comes in, and that was what happened in my case, the lender said, listen, I've got a deal here. There's only 3 left though. And so that worked for me that way, and I know the program's changed a bit, but I think that this is a program that provides an opportunity for people that doesn't cost the city any money, but it does bring back a positive impact on the community. So I'll need a motion, please.
I move to approve the ordinance approving the city's...
Wait, hold on, I've got a public hearing. We're just trying to fly through. Public hearing opens at 7:27. There's no one on the roster. Would anybody like to speak? Stu?
We're out of practice.
Don't give us any days off.
Council, Stu Maher, 5645 South Crocker Street, Council District 2, and a Realtor, emeritus. Yes, that is an official designation of the Realtor Association. There aren't many of us around. Yes, I would just comment on 2 of the options that you have in your staff report. On one, I would certainly encourage you to support this. And we've had great experience with these kinds of programs. To answer a couple of your questions briefly, I don't see this applying to folks who would be coming out of South Metro Housing Options single-family homes. The AMI, the area median income requirement, would pretty much preclude them. But it certainly does apply to the kinds of buyers that I think we see coming to Littleton who do have substantial income, or at least for their age group and their demographic, but who are short on down payment. And I think it does apply to them. And then also, I understand this money's coming from a bond issue that Denver supported. The earlier programs were funded, interestingly, by through the Metro Mayor's Caucus with funds that were left over from the Coors Field bonds. And they were very successful on that basis as well. And I really don't think there's any risk to the city or a problem of folks really being able to genuinely buy into this market and be good citizens and good borrowers. And my other comment would be on option 3, talks about the city council can direct staff to monitor the implementation. of the new MMA Plus program and consider the opportunity after the program has been established. I would just suggest that the Realtor Association would be very interested in maybe, if not partnering on that, it wouldn't really be partnering, but just acting as a resource. We monitor sales pretty closely, and we've always been interested in who uses what sorts of programs to purchase houses. But more so, I think we're interested, and this might relate to the current interest the city has in housing study and even other programs, to understand where are these, in many of these cases, the question is, where are these people coming from? And kind of what are their psychographics? And I think it might be the sort of thing that we could use the Realtor resources to help you track those sorts of things. I'd encourage you to support this program.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Stu. Thank you, Stu. That's a great idea. Thank you for that. Okay. Pam?
I'm Pam Chapborn and live a block and a half from here. So one comment I have is this is managed by the lenders. Nationally, historically, there has been a measurable difference in ethnicity and cultural groups who are funded by lenders. It's a question about intention, but there's no doubt that in the statistics, this occurs. So monitoring would be a good idea to see if there is a bias in who is selected for these. And I think that Littleton, as an inclusive community, should monitor and know whether this kind of bias is occurring. Also, integrated income levels in housing is the best way to a healthy community, vibrant community, and an engaged community and a successful community. So I'd like to see this integrated and tracked in the sense of, are we achieving integrated incomes in residential areas? So thanks for your consideration. As I mentioned before, it's important to get people into houses, and please help. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 7:33, and I need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance approving the city's participation in the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program, authorizing the execution of the delegation and participation agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Schlechter.
Question and then a comment, question to Tiffany. It looks like we do get information about who uses and how the program's been used with the pass of those 67 loans. I assume we'll continue to get information of how it's being used here in Littleton?
Sure, I can certainly reach out to them and ask them for periodic updates.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, I agree with the mayor. I think this sounds like a great program. There's no fiscal impact to the community or to the city here. It's a way to help people get into homes they may not be able to otherwise. Just to correct something from the first public comment, that qualifying income, that 150% AMI is a maximum. So to me, it would seem that people with lower incomes could utilize it. So this would be something that people coming from South Metro Housing Options would be able to take advantage of. So I think that's a great opportunity there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we move on to comments and reports. City manager,
No report, Mayor.
interim city attorney.
No report, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Elrod.
Two things. I attended the Play of Light exhibition at the Fine Arts Museum, and it was beautiful. And to be able to have that caliber of artist in Littleton really says a lot. It was a great turnout that evening as well, so it's good to see the engagement in the arts for sure. And secondly was we hosted our first Tech Talk Littleton We had about, I would say about 20-plus people turn out throughout the night. We had 3 speakers. We had Ashley Bolton, our IT director from City of Littleton. We had our the Chief Innovations Officer from City of Centennial, Scott Blumenwright, and Dustin Evans, the owner of Rocker Spirits, talk about innovation in government and innovation in business, and got really good feedback from the participants. I think this is something that we will continue to do. Some of the comments that we heard, so people really loved hearing about the 175 miles of sewer lines that we are tracking. While, when you put something like this out, you're like, oh, who's going to want to hear about it? But we actually got some really good feedback, and our people are looking forward to hearing more.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Fay.
No report.
Councilmember Schlechter.
I also attended the fine arts reception that Karina did, and I think a few of us else did. I think almost all of us, if not all of us, attended the meet and greet last week. 2 of the 4 are down. The next one is July 17th at Puma Park, if I remember that correctly.
Yes.
Sure, we'll go with that.
It's Puma.
It is now. But we had some good conversations with staff there, or not staff there, I didn't talk to any staff there, to the public there. And finally, I'd like to congratulate the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team for beating England today 2-1, and they play Sunday in the World Cup final.
Councilmember Cole.
No report.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going to the Center for the Blind 6 dash, is that right? With Kyle and Debbie and really, and Peggy, a very inspiring group of people that participated in that event. So I thank the school for inviting us over.
Oh, he took off his glasses.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Mayor
Let
Pro
me
Tem.
tell you. No, I just want to thank Corey for coming down, the Executive Director of the Housing Authority, the South Metro Housing Options is what they are now, for coming down. For the 71 households that are going to eventually need to move, many of them are happy about it because it gives them an opportunity. They can move anywhere in the country. So this isn't just somewhere that they have to find a place locally. Many of them just don't want to move, and I understand the difficulty for them. For the Housing Authority, though, it is a very difficult program for them to try to manage and operate and fund 71 units like that for many reasons. After the sale of these properties, they'll be able to house even more people, and I think even be reaching their mission to a lot more folks and households by doing that. So I know it is tough on those 71, many of those 71 folks, but not all of them are displeased by it. So thank you, Corey, for coming down to talk to us about it.
Okay, just a couple things. I want to also, as Councilmember Driscoll mentioned, the National Federation of the Blind 6 dash at the Colorado Center for the Blind. I was honored to be a co-honorary chair with Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, and it was their second year that they've done it, and they had, I think Councilmember Schlechter and I guesstimated about 300 people there. There may have been 200, 225 that actually were in the race, but it's growing every year, and so I let Executive Director Julie Deeden know that we would like to be included in opportunities to help support that on a higher level. So I think that the Center for the Blind is one of our stellar community members. Those students also live here. Executive Director Deeden asked if the city would make some considerations to possibly looking to help her with some employment of some of the intern. Some of them would like to intern, and others end up wanting to live in Littleton and stay here. And does the city have any opportunities there? And I said, well, we absolutely do, and I would pass that message on. So the message has been passed. And also, in June, early June, went to the Humane Society of South Platte Valley. They have their annual large-scale fundraiser, and they call it the Wolf and Wine. And I found out today that they raised $100,000 at this. And it started over at Hudson Gardens. It was real small. I think they made $8,000, and every year they've done more and more and more, and it's phenomenal. For those who aren't aware, the Humane Society of South Platte Valley was nearly not, and they were struggling. They had some very, very poor management. We went through a lot of legalities. The city of Littleton and Inglewood came in and really poured support into that organization, and it is now operating as one of the most high-functioning humane societies in the metropolitan area, and they really do, they place those dogs and cats, and they do an awful lot of training, and I know we do support them with some grant programs and stuff, but it's a well worthwhile organization, and I mention this because they're part of our grant program, what we consider every year with our council grants that we do. And I think when you've got an organization that's able to go out there and get themselves an extra $100,000, those are the type of organizations I like to support. I also attended a promotion. I think most of us know Sam Mullins, police officer, Littleton police officer Sam Mullins. He was promoted to sergeant, and he has been working very hard on that. I won't embarrass him and say how many times he took the test, but he is now a sergeant. We have 10 sergeants in the police force, and I want to just, mention that we're so proud of him. So, also attended the Play of Light and found out that our Fine Arts Board did make a purchase. So I would like to invite them to come down and share that purchase with us. Apparently they purchased it a while back, but I'd like to have an opportunity for the community to see what that purchase was. I think that's important. And again, it's a very good show. It's incredible artists. I actually think there's another piece we ought to buy, but I would encourage people to go again and visit that, support our arts. And at that, I have no further comments. Oh, I do want to make one quick comment that yesterday's storm actually caused some pretty severe damage at Carson Nature Center. Believe it or not, a lightning bolt actually struck the tree in the garden that's outside of the center, and it went right down the tree, splitting it essentially. It did a lot of damage from the percussion of it, broke windows, fried some electrical. Their computers are acting up now, and so the center will be in and out of operation for probably this week, foreseeable. There's a lot of debris, but it's quite shocking what a stroke of lightning can do. So I just want to let people know to be patient when you're over there. They're cleaning up.
Quite
so,
what? Quite what? Striking? Is that what you said?
I don't remember. Jeez, Jerry. We're adjourned.